When power meets pride, someone's bound to fall, and tonight it wasn't the waitress. The Harrington estate gleamed like something out of a magazine. Golden chandeliers, marble floors, a ballroom big enough to fit a small country. Everything screamed wealth and control. And no one controlled it better than Vivien Harrington, the woman who thought her diamonds doubled as a crown. But under that sparkle was something darker. She didn't just enjoy luxury, she enjoyed watching people bow to it. And tonight, someone refused to, because standing quietly in that glittering chaos was Aisha Morgan, a black waitress with calm eyes, steady hands, and a secret she'd buried for years. The night she walked into that ballroom, she thought it was just another shift, serving champagne, dodging arrogance, surviving rich people's conversations. But the universe had other plans. The charity gala was the event of the season. Sequin dresses shimmered, champagne fizzed, and egos floated higher than the chandeliers. Aisha moved gracefully from table to table, her face expressionless, the perfect invisible servant. But even from across the room, she could feel Vivian's eyes on her. Cold, measuring, like she was inspecting a flaw in her own perfection. That stare lingered too long, sharp, curious, cruel. And Aisha didn't know it yet, but that look was the spark that would burn the entire illusion to ashes. Because sometimes revenge doesn't arrive with anger, it arrives with truth. And truth was about to walk right into Vivian's perfect little world and tear it to ribbons in front of her guests. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. Now back to the ballroom, where one harmless insult was seconds away from exposing a lie buried for decades. The ballroom buzzed with laughter and soft classical music. Everything was timed to perfection, from the clinking of champagne glasses to the polite applause after every speech. But under all that glitter, a storm was quietly brewing. Aisha kept her head down, balancing a silver tray with the kind of grace only years of invisible labor could teach. To the guests, she was just background, another shadow serving drinks. But to Vivien Harrington, she was something else entirely, a disturbance, a reminder. Vivien had noticed her the moment she walked in. Maybe it was her poise, maybe it was the calm that didn't bend under pressure, or maybe it was recognition, the kind that digs at your memory like an itch you can't reach. But rather than curiosity, Vivien chose cruelty. "Excuse me," her voice rang out, slicing through the music like a knife. The chatter faded, every head turned. "Can we get someone more? Suitable?" The word suitable dropped like poison in the air. Aisha froze. Her hands didn't tremble, but her pulse did. Every eye in that ballroom pinned her in place, waiting to see what she'd do, as if humiliation was part of the entertainment. Vivien smiled, that sugar-coated grin the rich use when they want to wound someone politely. "You see, presentation is everything," she continued, her tone soft but dripping venom. "My guests shouldn't be distracted." A few people laughed, nervous, unsure, guilty. But Vivien loved it. Power was her favorite perfume, and she was bathing in it. Aisha placed her tray down gently, her face calm. "My apologies, Mrs. Harrington," she said evenly. "Would you prefer someone else to assist?" Vivien tilted her head, pretending to think. "Oh, darling, it's nothing personal. It's just—" Her eyes swept over Aisha. "People like you tend to stand out." That last line hit like a slap. Can you believe she actually said that? But it gets worse, because that single insult was about to dig up a secret Vivien thought she'd buried decades ago. The room went silent. Even the orchestra hesitated, bows hanging midair. Vivien took a sip of her champagne, satisfied, her smirk gleaming like the diamonds choking her neck. But across the room, Aisha's world had shifted. Her mother's face flashed in her mind, trembling hands, tear-streaked cheeks, and that final day at the Harrington estate. The day they'd been thrown out after Vivian's lie ruined everything. A lie told to protect her reputation. Aisha had come back to this house for one reason: survival. She promised herself she'd stay quiet, blend in, play invisible. But people like you, that phrase cracked something inside her that silence couldn't fix anymore. She excused herself and slipped into the kitchen. The laughter faded behind her. In the mirror by the door, her reflection stared back, calm, composed, unshakable. For the first time, she didn't see a servant. She saw her mother's strength staring back at her. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it walks back into the room wearing a waiter's uniform and holding decades of truth. Moments later, Aisha re-entered the ballroom. No tray this time, no forced smile, just deliberate steps that made every whisper stop. Heads turned. Even Vivien paused mid-laugh, her champagne glass hovering. "Oh, you're back," she said lightly, pretending not to notice the tension. "I thought I made myself clear." Aisha's voice cut through the air, calm, steady, dangerous. "You did," she said, "just like you did to my mother." The name that followed made Vivien's hand tremble. Guests froze, glancing at each other, confused. Aisha didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words carried years of pain, packed neatly in every syllable. "My mother worked for you, Mrs. Harrington. She lost everything because of the lie you told, the one that protected your name and destroyed hers." Can you imagine that silence? 100 guests, all staring, waiting for Vivien's mask to crack. And then it did. The color drained from Vivien's face. For once, the woman who always had the perfect line, the flawless retort, had nothing. Her glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble. The sound echoed like a confession. Whispers rippled through the ballroom. Phones came out. Guests who once laughed at Vivien's jokes now stared in disbelief. The queen of the room suddenly looked small, trembling beneath her glittering chandelier. Aisha didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She just looked her straight in the eye and said quietly, "Apologies mean nothing when they come too late." The words hit harder than any slap. Vivien's lip trembled. Her mascara streaked as the tears started, the kind that aren't elegant or photogenic, but raw and human. The same tears she'd once caused in others. For years, she'd humiliated people who couldn't fight back. Now the same crowd she ruled over watched her crumble. The silence was brutal, not out of pity, but judgment. They weren't clapping for wealth anymore. They were witnessing truth. Aisha placed her staff badge on the nearest table beside Vivien's untouched glass. That small gesture, calm, deliberate, was louder than any speech. She turned, walking toward the exit as the room parted like a tide. Each step felt lighter, freer. She wasn't just leaving the ballroom, she was walking out of generations of silence, out of her mother's shadow, out of fear. Behind her, people whispered. But this time it wasn't gossip, it was realization. The next morning, headlines read, "Waitress exposes socialite at gala, truth stuns high society." But for Aisha, it was never about revenge. It was about dignity, about finally giving her mother's story a voice. Because sometimes justice doesn't need a courtroom, just the courage to speak when everyone else stays quiet. And in that golden ballroom, beneath the chandeliers of power, one woman's truth finally broke the illusion. If you felt that, share this story so more people see that silence only protects cruelty. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Aisha's place?